Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
Hello and welcome to All for United with me, John Foster, MUFC. Full house tonight, it's a panel of 6. Let's say hello to everybody first before we go through all the topics, what we're going to be talking about. Reece, how you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. You?
Yep, not too bad, thank you. I've livened up a little bit now. It's been a busy day. Me and Andrew went down for a drink last night, so we was back a little bit late, wasn't we? And I've been at work all day, just done a women's show as well. So, but I've finally livened up a little bit now. So, yeah, not too bad, and I'm looking forward to this one. Yeah. So, Stuart shaking his head in disapproval there.
Disgrace.
That's the problem then. Me and Andrew live fairly close to each other. We can just have a drink whenever we want, especially over the summer. Yeah, looking forward to that. Andrew, you okay, mate?
Yeah, well, all good. Recovered now from last night, so yeah. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Looking forward to this one. John, good to see you, mate. How are you?
Good to see you, John. I'm very well, thank you. Good to be on again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Stu, how you doing, mate? You had a good week? Or having a good week?
I am. I played footy. I'm not long got back. I was as class as usual. So no, I was average tonight. I was okay. Nothing special. But yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. Looking forward to Jubilee. Actually, I must admit. Looking forward to Jubilee. Fair play to the old girl. Fair play to the old girl.
I'm always interested in what you're wearing, Stu. So let's have a look. Not like that, but let's have a quick look.
Wow.
Give us a bit of a twist, Stu.
It's just you can't see. It's just a very light training top. I'm very road safety conscious, obviously, so I like to be seen. No, do you know, I've got loads of these, and I just chucked one on the way back over. So.
Neil, good to see you, mate. How you doing?
Good. I've been on more shows than Paddy McGuinness this week.
Always good to have you on, Neil. Well, it was actually your topic that's on the thumbnail, so we'll make a start on this. Obviously, Ralph Rangnick. Loads of questions that I've put on Twitter, and you'll see another tweet to go out at about 10:30 with some more questions and teasers, and got some questions going along the bottom of the screen right now. When Ralph came in, I think a lot of people did actually think, well, this is a good idea, even though it's an interim. He's going to assess the team. He's going to move on to bridge the gap between manager and the board. Obviously, Neil's shaking his head. Was you never really a fan of that idea, Neil?
It's the interim thing again. You know, I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing and all that sort of stuff. But hang on, what's that? Is that you?
He's watching the TV.
Did anyone else see that, or is it just me?
That might be me, Neil. Sorry about that. I'm trying to sabotage you there, mate.
Oh, okay. Well,
no, sorry,
that, mate. You know me, mate. It's just this interim thing again. I don't care who it was, but if it was starting with interim, it was never going to work out, and it just didn't make any sense at the start. He hadn't managed major club. He didn't manage anything for the size of Manchester United, and he'd been, a consultant for, in Moscow. So he hadn't managed for a long time, and I just didn't see where it was going to go. We're all more excited about his next job. But we've spoken, Stu and I have been on a show where we've spoken about this. You could tell from Ten Hag's press conference that Rangnick's days were numbered, because he was just completely nonplussed. And it's just been, it sort of encapsulates the way it has been the last few years. And I'm hoping that they've sort of cleaned house and allowed Ten Hag to build the sort of backroom staff that he wants up to the director of football level. And he can bring in the right people he wants to work with. He does seem sort of quite cold, and I quite like that about him. But I just thought the Rangnick thing has just been disastrous. He wasn't allowed to do the job. It doesn't seem it's just maybe with hindsight again, maybe they would have been an idea to stick or go balls out and spend the money and get Ten Hag immediately and pay the compensation on it and get him in as soon as possible. It just they're in so many camps, ridiculous.
Yeah. I've got a bit of problem with Neil's audio. Is that just me or Reese? Is it Neil?
Going in and out.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, it's okay now. Yeah, but I get what Neil's saying. I do. I'll bring Reese in on this. Do you think it was always like kind of destined to fail with everyone kind of knowing that it was an interim, or was it a good idea in principle, but it just didn't quite work out? But the other manager may have make it work, or what's your thoughts on this, mate?
Yeah, I said this like before the show. I feel like I've been his nemesis on this because I've dug him out a couple of times on some shows that we've done. I think it's a good question now. That one specifically though, John. Because I think, was it destined to fail? I don't think it was destined to fail. I think that there was plenty of opportunity to get something out of the season. If he'd had, been a little bit more tactical with his approach with some of the players, with the way that we were set up, some of the games that we went into, if it had been a little bit more cagey and a bit more reserved, and played a little and boxed a little bit clever. He didn't do that really. I didn't feel like he did that. He tried to rip up the previous sort of counter-attacking method that we used to play to under Ollie, and just decided that we were suddenly going to start playing a pressing, high pressing game. And the players were, one, evidently not fit enough, mentally strong enough, and all the above to do that sort of style of football. So for me, it was quite naive, and it's not a surprise that it's come to sort of this kind of bitter end of, him sort of leaving it all to one side rather than him, taking any of the responsibility for any of what any of the sort of job that he was going to take on originally. I think he's just put it all to one side and decided to get out of there as quickly as he can. Now, has it been his decision? Has it been a mutual decision? Has it been completely taken out of his hands and it's been a decision of Ten Hag's? I suppose none of us will ever kind of know that really. But again, I'm sort of repeating what I said the other night, but I think it was quite telling in terms of how Ten Hag had approached his interview, and when he was asked about Rangnick, similar to a few days prior to that, where Rangnick was quite buoyant about meeting Ten Hag, and Ten Hag was quite the opposite to that. He seemed to be quite off-put by the fact that he had to address Rangnick and find out what he had to gather, which said it all to me. That said that Ten Hag had no interest in entertaining this fella and taking him seriously. So yeah, it was a shame. I feel like we've had a really poor season, but there could have been some positive, results out of the end of it all. Really, if he had boxed a little bit clever, John, and I didn't think he did that at any point in the season. So for me, I've as a person, as a man, and what he's done previously, I can respect what he's done, but I think what he's done at Man United has been pretty poor and pretty shoddy, to be honest. And that's just my view on it, really.
You did call it last week or the week before when we were speaking about the press conferences. You did actually mention that, Reece, that like it did seem very much one-sided, and yeah, it is interesting, and it's also interesting like the sudden change of plan. Why would you, as a club, kind of embarrass yourself a little bit by saying, "Well, this is a plan now. You're going to be with us for a certain amount of hours per week or month or whatever," and then all of a sudden, just public knowledge now that it's not worked out. It's kind of an embarrassment from the club's point of view as well, isn't it?
I think it is, yeah. I didn't like the idea of it in the beginning. I think Stu might have mentioned it on last night's show, the night before, about and Neil as well. I think in terms of Man United don't need a part timer. Man United, especially going forward now, we need somebody who's going to come in and take it full time. And I think Ten Hag probably saw that and thought, you know what, none of this nonsense now. We need to get rid of all that sort of crap and start afresh, properly and solidly. None of this part-time business. No matter how long it takes to do a consultancy role on top of a full-time management role as well. It's just shit we don't need. Do you know what I mean? We just need to move on from it. So yeah, it's not come as a surprise, John, if I'm brutally honest, and I feel a little bit sorry for him in the end, but I can't deny that he hasn't done a great job, unfortunately.
Yeah, Andrew, I'm more surprised that they announced what they announced a couple of weeks ago now, saying that he'll still be with the club in this kind of role. Then all of a sudden, out the blue now, he's not even with the club. I mean, to say that I'm running this fan channel and I'll turn around and say to all the viewers that we get and say, right, this is a lineup. Then we've got Reese, who's going to be looking after Monday's show. He's a fantastic guy. He's going to be doing this. He's going to be doing that. And then Andrew, you're going to be looking after Tuesday's show. Then all of a sudden, a couple of weeks later, Reese is off the channel. It kind of makes it look a little bit weird, doesn't it? So, just kind of put it in that perspective. It does look quite kind of amateur. Andrew, what's your kind of thought on how suddenly he's gone from having a brand new role, he's not even had that role yet, to suddenly just leaving completely?
Yeah, I sort of agree with your point. I just think I'm not surprised he's not doing the consultancy role then, but it wasn't quite clear what he was going to be actually doing for those, in that role, for 6 days a month. Nobody actually said out loud, oh, this is exactly what Rangnick's going to be doing. And I just think when I agree with Neil, I was never in favour of the interim manager role. It's like having the supply teacher there, and the players knew he wasn't going to be around for long, so we'll just do what we want. And I just think in that first game he had against Palace, I thought, oh, you can definitely see a difference in the players, but then everything seemed to rear its ugly head again, and the players just form just dropped down again, and the alarm bells are starting to ring. And I just think Rangnick's preferred role is building clubs behind the scenes. And I mean, so he was brought in with the caveat he would move upstairs, but it just didn't work out in the dugout for him. And I mean, it's just I don't think United could take that risk with him being upstairs. And I think it was pretty much telling from Ten Hag as well. His curt response to say, well, with Rangnick's role, oh, it's up to the club to decide that. It was almost like saying, I sort of don't want him to be here. It's like with Rangnick, I mean, in his press interviews, he's being very honest about the situation at the club, what needs to be done. But obviously, there was no meeting between him and Ten Hag, and him finishing sixth in the league as well. I mean, I just think his credibility as a consultant then just sort of was then lacking. And then I feel like Ten Hag coming in, he's going to be his own man, and he'll stand and fall on his own sword. But for Rangnick, yes, he was our interim manager. He got us till limped us to the end of the season. So I just say thank you for what you've done for us, but it's time to move on, and we'll go forward with Ten Hag now.
He's muted. Shall we tell him, or shall we just let him talk to himself for a little bit?
You there, Stu?
I disagree. I don't know. I see it differently, and the best way to screw up any DIY job is to use the wrong tool. That's the best way to do it. And unfortunately, Manchester United used Rangnick in the wrong way. Rangnick was never going to be a brilliant manager. That's not his skill set. His skill set is to develop and put a structure in to a football club. That's what he's there for. That's what he does. That's why he hasn't managed for well over 10 years. So he's never going to come in and manage a bunch of moron players that cry if they get kicked in training, or cry if they don't get chips, or cry, if somebody can't come around and fit a plug for him. He's never going to work on that. So to come in as an interim manager was never going to work. But you cannot have a pop at a man who has completely changed the back end of Manchester United. See, the problem is people are seeing Rangnick as a manager. They're not seeing the whole picture of what he's done and what he's achieved. And I actually think at the backroom part, he's been a great success. And his only issue was he was way too honest. And these guys in America, they don't like honesty. They can't cope with honesty. They don't kind of get it. It doesn't happen in America, but it does here in the UK. And football fans are completely different in globally to American football fans. We're way more vocal. We're way more opinionated, and he's fallen on his sword by way of that. I don't really read much into the old Ten Hag press conference, if I'm being honest, because both Ten Hag and Rangnick said they'd never come across each other. What an absolute load of bollocks that is. Absolute bollocks. Because they would have both been in the Champions League draw in Zurich a few years ago. So they've met each other. It's just smoke and mirrors. Everything is smoke and mirrors within football. And the problem is the people who run football think fans are mugs. And, we're not mugs. We're very, very smart. We're very astute people. And so for me, Rangnick, I think it's a big excuse that he can't do the Austrian job and spend 2 or 3 hours an evening consulting for Manchester United. It's a big excuse. I think they've said, they've taken the hump somewhere along the line in America, and he's been removed. But there's absolutely no way that John Murtough, Richard Arnold, and Darren Fletcher have been instrumental in putting this together and rebuilding the club. No chance. Because if that was the case, we would have done it 3-4 years ago. It's. I just don't buy into that. And I've seen, journalists beg to differ. Well, it's up to them at the end of the day. So for me, I think Rangnick's been a good success. I hope he does well at Austria. But I think we need him as a consultant. I think we need him as a sporting director because he needs to steer the ship in the right direction. I think John Murtough has learned a hell of a lot in the 6 months that Rangnick has been at Manchester United on how to structure a football club. So I think it'll be interesting moving forward. But that's my opinion on it anyway.
I like how you've separated him as a manager to him as his strengths, and I do get that. But do you think then by him coming in as a manager, he's kind of just swayed everyone's opinion, automatically thinking, oh no, we don't like Rangnick at all, just because?
100%. 100%. If he'd come in just as a sporting director or whatever, anything, something like that, it'd be a completely different story. Everybody would be raving about the job that Rangnick's done. Yeah. But because we had a poor 6 months, then people are making a bigger thing about how bad Rangnick's been. So, this is polarizing opinion because it's probably 50-50 of the fan base say he's done a good job. 50% of the fan base is saying he's done a poor job. That's how this line is. And I just think that, the bottom line is he was very vocal. He was almost, calling the Glazers out on a regular basis towards the end. And I think that's burnt him. And that's such a shame. The Glazers really just need to completely step away, let Richard Arnold and let Rangnick run the club how it should have been run. And instead of a 3 to 5 year program, which we're now looking at under Ten Hag, we may have done it in a 2-year program. We may have got somewhere in a 2-year program. But, Ronaldo was supposedly come out and saying he's a bit miffed about the state of the swimming pool and facilities at Carrington. So spending £5 million to do that. I'm pretty convinced Rangnick, it'd have been on Rangnick's list that, Carrington isn't up to scratch. The pitches aren't up to scratch. The weight room isn't up to scratch. The canteen isn't up to scratch. My office isn't up to scratch. The car park isn't up to scratch. As Neil always says, we are the creme de la creme. We are the elite football club in the world. And we've been overtaken by everybody. And I just think Rangnick has done a root and branch audit of the club, the standard of the club, the standards within the club. And I think he's turned around and said, you're all 3 out of 10. And that's not where Manchester United needs to be. So anyway.
Stuart's making, and I'd see Stuart's point because it's not actually massively different from the point Rangnick was brought in to do. And I agree with a lot of what Stu's saying, even though it probably looks like we're polar opposite views. But Rangnick was brought in as an interim manager who ended up, while he was doing the so-called interim manager title, he was doing all the backroom stuff. So if he was brought into sort of clean house, if you like, to want of a better term, there's no way he could do both, manage and clean house. And Stuart, and I 100% agree with Stuart, what he's done in the background, I'm hoping that will tell in years to come, because he has sort of, cleaned the shells and, whatever cliche you want to say, but he has got rid of some dead wood out of that. It's just a shame he has another chance to finish that job off. Me personally, looking at Ten Hag, I don't think he wanted anything to do with Rangnick. I sort of agree with Stuart, they probably know each other, and that might be one of the reasons that Ten Hag has said, no, I'm in charge. And we're all, I think we all agree that the most important person at any club is the manager. So if that's the way Ten Hag wants it, he's going to live and die now on his decisions, and he hasn't got Rangnick in some respects to say, well, this is what I inherited. Because Ten Hag's come in and he's looking at the fitness levels as well, and he's obviously studied a lot of games. So it just goes to show that it's just such a effing mess. And Rangnick was honest. I loved his honesty in his press conferences. The one point I will disagree with Stuart, American sports fans are pretty vocal, but they're vocal in a different way than our sports fans. I don't see the Las Vegas Raiders doing these sort of shows. I don't know. I've never checked. But we're the biggest club in the world. We shouldn't be doing interims. We shouldn't be doing, where we are one of the biggest clubs. We've always paid good money. So our wage bill was number 2 in the Premier League. So it doesn't reflect the performances. And Rangnick's got stuck into the players. I actually don't mind him calling them out. I'm quite happy with that. If the snowflakes don't like it, then most of those snowflakes are bloody going to go in the summer anyway. So it's Ten Hag. He's in charge. I'll give him, I think he needs 3 years to at least change the direction, because he's got his own style of football. Stuart and I have had conversations about this. You could be looking 5 to 10 years before, at least 5 years, I think, before we're challenging for the top 1 or 2. I'd be happy if we got in the Champions League within the next 2 years, because there's a lot of clubs out there going to spend money. Villa, who I can't stand. Spurs are spending, already signed players. Arsenal will spend. We just got to accept where we are at the moment. And hopefully Ten Hag's given the time and the patience. I still worry about our toxic fan base. I mean, I don't worry in the respect it keeps me up at night, but our toxic fan base just could ruin this for the rest. Because the more I see and hear what Ten Hag says, the more I think he's the 100% right man for the job. And you all know I was a Pochettino first for me. But Ten Hag's really impressed me so far with his demeanour, the way he comes across. He looks like a no bullshit type of manager, which is what this club needs at this point in time. Sorry, I've rattled on and John's not said a word, but I know John's got a nice single malt on the go, so he's quite happy and warm inside.
I've wait and speak. No, please.
John, you can take this question, but I just want to add something to that briefly. That my only sort of I do get Stu's point on the fact of his strengths, and I just said that previously that I understand what he was good at and what he was hopefully going to be coming to the club to do, but he didn't come to the club to do any of that. He came to the club initially to be a manager, and he should have known. He was obviously quite a clever and intellectual sort of person. He should have realised the kind of enormity of the job he was getting himself in for. And equally, I think what has he actually done? Has he written a report on the findings of his time at United? Has he published that report to the board? As fans, have we seen that report?
It'll be in a book.
All I've seen is press conferences where he's called people out in the heat of the moment in emotion, which is fine and great as fans. You say, oh, great, he said something about a player because we're all pissed off, and he said something that we all wanted to hear, but he's supposed to be the one leveling everybody out. He's the manager. He's got to go, right, everybody calm down. This is the way that it's going to go. He's supposed to be the one not losing his rag when we're all losing his heads, and he's supposed to be bringing us back down to level. But for me, it's all right just blaming people when you're under the cosh. Well, the players have said this, the players have done that, and he shouldn't have done this. Because your winning percentages have been down at 40 odd percent. You know, if it was winning games, he wouldn't have said those things, regardless of whether the players were good enough for United or not. I think it's been a poor. You can't get away from the fact that he's just, for me, he's a man who should have been coming in and feeding into the structure of the club and helping us progress in that side in the backroom staff and helping us build. He wasn't there to do that. He was there to put us through and give us the best place we could do with the current team that we had to the end of the season. And
nobody could have done that. Nobody could have got them playing. That's the whole point about this race. Nobody could have got them playing. Pochettino couldn't have got them playing. They just didn't care for the whole season.
There's one thing playing. Like we're talking about playing in terms of competing. We weren't competing against anybody. We could have.
Yeah, but that's down to the players, isn't it? That's down to the players. I talk about this all the time, and I'll never change my opinion ever. It's down to the players. Once they cross that white line, if they don't want to compete, that's it. It's down to them. They've got to take the bulk of the responsibility of where we sit in sixth place. Oh, they really do. I know people go on about managers, they go on about coaching all the time, but it really isn't that simple. Just blaming the manager. I mean, Neil's played at a good level, same as I have.
I'm not necessarily blaming the manager. I just think obviously that's the topic of the conversation. We could, if the topic was blaming Pogba for the season, we would obviously we'd be coming up with examples, I'm sure, where he's been pretty poor. But for me, it's just there's been instances this season where if you look at the Real Madrid Liverpool game the other night on Saturday night, Real Madrid would have been foolish to go toe-to-toe with Liverpool. Like if you were a boxer, you have two boxers and you're going up against Tyson Fury, you'd be pretty foolish to go in toe-to-toe with Tyson Fury. So you've got to come up with a different tactic. Rangnick, we weren't poor at the start of the season. If you look at the fixtures and the results that we'd had, we were doing okay. We weren't great, but we were doing okay. It went from bad to worse. Like instead of shutting up shop and making us into a solid team to defeat, we were an easy team to beat. As well as again, that's to beat, we also didn't score goals.
But that's down to the players. But that is down to the players on the pitch. As much as I keep going,
not when you're playing the formations he was playing. Not when you're playing a pressing game. But anyway, I'll move on to John.
No. Can I speak before John? Only joking, John. Only joking, mate. Only joking.
I've got one more point. I'm sorry. During games,
excellent. Go on, Stu.
During games, you go rogue. If we're not scoring goals, that's our own fault. If we're not adapting on the pitch to opposition tactics, that's the players' fault. It really is. I played in millions of games where we've had to readapt on the pitch. And if they can't be bothered to run back an extra 10 or 15 yards, it's not the coaches and the players' fault. It's not the coaches and the manager's fault. It's the players' fault. They're the ones that are out there supposedly playing football.
Come on, John. Let's have your side of this one. And it's just a question on screen is a good question. It just kind of link in regarding the relationship between them both. But do you want to have your side of this one, John?
Yeah, I think I personally do think he had a say in Ten Hag becoming the manager. I remember the first time I heard that Ten Hag was the favourite for the United job was actually a report that came through from Henry Winter, and he's a very good journalist, and that was back in early January, and it's about timing and that, and I think that was probably the time where I first thought, oh, that's interesting, because he's quite a good journalist, Henry Winter, and I do think that I reckon if Wood would have stayed on, we would have probably gone for Pochettino and that. But because the change of the guard, Wood was leaving, Arnold coming in, John Murtough getting more control, I do think that Rangnick had a bit more influence behind some of the changes that occurred behind the scenes, and what maybe the media's giving him credit for. And I think, I do think he would have suggested Ten Hag to the board, or to Murtough. his own personal opinion, he didn't conduct any interviews or do anything, but I think he probably points out to me that you need to get this right, you need to get that right, because this isn't good enough, that isn't good enough. And I personally never felt its reign would be successful. I think it was just 6 months to assess one, maybe see who good enough, see who wasn't good enough, and then we could prepare in the summer with a new manager and take us forward from there. But I think it's interesting. People ask about Rangnick and Ten Hag, whether Ten Hag had a say or about whether he stayed on or not. I think the interesting thing is, I think both demand a degree of power and influence, maybe regarding decision making, that perhaps there might have been a clash, maybe that kind of thing. I mean, there was a report I read this morning where basically it was saying that what Rangnick, the plays Rangnick said we should be going for that player, this player, that player, mostly from Germany. I think maybe United might have felt, well, that's not the direction we want to go in. Obviously, it's very clear that his honesty harmed him. Obviously, he's got to take responsibility for some of the bad performances and that kind of thing, but then again, I think players have failed under 2 different managers this season. So, yeah, ultimately the responsibility lies, as you mentioned, only one person responsible for how you play on the pitch, and that's yourself. And I think he didn't do himself any favours necessarily with his honesty and the performances, but the blame he gets for second half of this season is, I personally think, minimal compared to, it's the same players that played throughout the season have been rubbish throughout most of them, although apart from maybe a couple of good ones. But yeah, for me, I do think he had a role with some of the changes that occurred.
Yeah, just answering Ben's question, bless him. Look, there's been a raft of changes in the background. We've all seen this. There's been a variety of different people removed from their positions. The company line is that they've decided to move on, etc., etc., etc. But there was Vicky made a good point weeks ago now, John, and you'll remember this because me and you both said we'd never really thought about that. And she was talking about age categories of our scouts being well older than actually are they able to understand the modern day player. And most of our competitors have got younger scouts and younger coaches in to get a handle on these. And I think she's right. And I think this is what Rangnick has identified. I think Rangnick has looked at the overall structure, looked at the personnel that we've got in specifics, and actually turned around and said, look, these scouts are in their 60s. What on earth do they know about, a 16-year-old or a 15-year-old modern-day footballer? These scouts are there to play 4-4-2 because me and Neil grew up on 4-4-2. That was the only formation that was around when me and Neil were 5, 6, 7, and 8. That's how it was. And so Vicky made a hugely important point, and I think this is a few areas where Rangnick's looked at it. And nobody can tell me that Rangnick wasn't instrumental in these changes because it's never happened before. The coincidence is way too big to suggest that Rangnick's had nothing to do with this, that it's purely down to Richard Arnold and John Murtagh. It isn't. We lost the under-23s coach to go to Salford City. Why? Why would the under-23s coach go to a knife-edge job at Salford City where he's going to be probably out of work in 5 months' time, when the season starts? Because you know what Gary Neville's like. You've got to look at the structure that was and the structure that is and the structure that's likely to be. And that's when I think you'll see the good work that Rangnick has done behind the scenes. Sorry, Neil, I know you wanted to come in, mate.
Now, I disagree. The only point I disagree with you, I disagree on the age of the scouts because they've got experience, and a good player you can spot no matter what the formation is. And Stuart's right. If anybody said to us, right, we're playing with a sweeper today, we're going, what? Well, what's all that about? We were 4-4-2. But scouts, they've got the eye, and the more they've been a scout, and I know this because, well, my opinion of this is I remember my brother got scouted a lot, even though he's an odious individual. Can't deny he was scouted a lot. But they were all, oh, seriously, there's a whole show there. And he was actually scouted by Manchester United I mean, he was a schoolboy there. But every single scout that came to our house to try and get him to sign schoolboy forms were what you would call experienced people. And that I think that I personally would get some comfort from something like that. I know there's two sides to every coin, and probably Stu and I are getting to the age where we might be too old to be scouts. You sort of see my point. I think that older scouts are good. I think older scouts are good. My point is from an experience point of view.
Yeah. But you're looking at it from a football eyes, Neil, and I get that.
I agree. I agree. There's a balance that needs to be found somewhere. But I personally,
that's what I think.
I know I'm not going to. We've all agreed with each other tonight on pretty much everything. We've all got there in the end. But I'd like the scout. If it was me, I'd like to see a lot of experience in my scouting structure.
With all this talk about new structures and things like that, it kind of makes me think that it's going to take a bit longer. It's not just a case of just bringing in one manager and everything's set up ready. It's going to take a little while to, get back to where we want to be and where we should be. So it kind of brings in Andy's topic about readjusted expectations. So do you want to kind of introduce this topic, Andrew?
Yeah, it's just something I was reading the other day, saying somebody had written saying, I think, we need to, say lower expectations at the club just for the time being. So with Ten Hag coming in, let him have that time to, build a team capable, winning of trophies. I mean, he's achieved, great things with Ajax, but he's going to need time to, bend that squad to his will. But I know there'll be those out saying, well, this is Manchester United. You shouldn't be allowing standards to drop at this club. But then you look at some of the results and performances the season just gone, well, the standards were pretty much on the floor. It was sometimes non-existent as well. But I just think, us football fans were led by emotion and belief that, we should be dreaming success at the club. So I'm also arguing the point, well, if we can't have success, what's the point in being a fan? But I know, as we've mentioned, John Murtagh, Richard Arnold and those others behind the scene are making sweeping changes and saying all the right things on the footballing side. So I just think, and also on Rangnick is saying people like on this panel and others have said, well, he's probably done some good things behind the scenes, but on the field it just didn't quite work out for him. So I think we're just going forward and ahead. We'll just maybe need to readjust our expectations, because I just think, social media, what that's like, during games or after games. And I just think there's going to come a point next season, maybe Ten Hag might hit a low point, and it's how everybody, reacts to that. It's going to be those that will give, Ten Hag all the time he needs. But then there's, the likes of social media, they're just going to go, well, oh, Ten Hag's got to go now. He's not doing, he needs to change this, that, and everything else. But I just think we just got to give him, time to rebuild the team. See United's side playing attacking football and go in the right direction. It might be, say, I think as he said in these interviews, like, we're not in the best position at the moment. It's getting back to that top four, but it could be a good 2 or 3 years before we're even just starting to even challenge for the title. So I just think, is it right with lowering our expectations, or should we just keep them as the same? Well, we should be always, striving for that success. Just keeping those standards.
John, I'll bring you on this one then. I don't know if I want to use the word lowering expectations, because I think the fan base will go crazy and call us like Glazer supporters and all this kind of stuff. But I do like the word readjusting. So is that the stage that you think we're at now? We're readjusting expectations.
To finish lower than 6th place on 58 points. But no, I think I think you've certainly got to be realistic for the next season. We certainly won't be competing for the league. We might compete for the top 4 at best, and we do traditionally tend to go far in the Europa League, maybe. So maybe we can have a good run in that. Oh, ideally, you'd like to win something like that, but I'm not going to expect us to win anything next season. I don't think managers. I think Mourinho's the only manager who's ever won something in his first season at United. So I personally, I think Tyrone made the point before. I just want to see us. See an identity where we play good football, we're competitive in games, where let's try get a good result against your City, Liverpool's not every game. I don't expect us to compete with them, but at least be competitive with them in games and that kind of thing. But I do personally think that you just want to see good football. You want to see us competing, and it'll be interesting to see what signings we bring in. I think we need to certainly get a couple of big signings in. People don't understand the 10 system. Obviously, bring them for Timber and talks about De Jong. Those are the type of players who will know how to play a 10-act system if we were to get them in. But I don't expect us to win anything. Maybe we can go far in one of the competitions. And hopefully, we might get Champions League one way or another for the season after. So that's what I would personally be hoping for next season.
Yeah, I'll just add to that from what John said as well. I think he's right. I think expectation wise, I think we've got to just. I don't know. I don't know if, like you say, lowering is kind of the word, really, is it? I think it's more just kind of adjusting to the reality of the situation that we're in. I think the thing is, unlike maybe sort of an Arsenal who had that kind of similar sort of drop from grace and who've kind of got their team seemingly back on track, I think United have got a lot more resource than that. We've got a lot of players out on loan that are going to be coming back to us. I know there's a lot of players leaving, but there's a hell of a lot of players coming back that before we even start making any signings as well. So there's a lot to take from that. And I think, Europa League, I won't say that we've got to expect to win that outright, but I think we've got to expect that we're going to go pretty far. I think we've got to expect that. I think regardless, we're still Man United and we've still got a lot of players and a lot of quality in the team. And if the manager can get a tune out of them in pre-season and get his players back early and start getting some rhythm in the team, then I think we've got to expect that we'll go a good distance in the Europa League. The league itself, I think we've got to aim top 4. Whether we get top 4 is another one, but I think we've got to aim for it as a target. I think it's got to be a target for next season. I think that's got to be a realistic kind of expectation that we've got to try and hunt for top 4. In terms of the other competitions, the domestic cups, I think you never know. You just got to be in them to win them. I think it's kind of a cliche, but it's you never know. A big team gets kicked out. Either we kick them out or they get kicked out by somebody else. Then you've got a shout at winning it. So it's I think to outright say that we're going to win a League Cup or a FA Cup is pretty unrealistic. But I think as long as we're in it, then you never know. So I think next season it's just kind of just enjoy the ride. I think hopefully we play a bit of better football. We've got some players who we're excited to watch. I think every week, really excited to see what they can do and we're just enjoying watching Man United again. I think that's kind of the expectation, that we just enjoy watching the games and enjoy watching them play some decent football. And then hopefully wins come from the back of that. And maybe, fingers crossed, we get some success out of it as well. So I think that's all we can really hope for.
Sure, I think Reece is right, what he says there, in the sense of we just got to start enjoying watching us again. But that's kind of sad, isn't it? You know, hearing John say that, you know, we might not even win anything next season, and we haven't even started the season yet, and thinking like this way inclined. You know, Stu, do you want to have your say on this? And then Neil, come straight in after Stu, mate, if you want.
Yeah, well, my expectations are quite low, really. The only way we're going to really benefit from Ten Hag or a manager as a whole, really, is if we put together a winning streak of 10 to 11 games. And it has to be a winning streak. There can't be any draws in there. And that winning streak will deliver you somewhere. It'll either deliver you to a semi-final or a final of a cup competition, or it'll deliver you top 6 at least. And that's all we can ask for, because I don't think anyone can tell me the last time we put a 10 to 12 game winning streak, apart from Ollie's reign. I think when he was interim, we run about 14 on the bounce, and we've not done something since. And that's been a big problem. It's a big problem for any football team, by the way, not just Manchester United, but any football team. So there's your foundation. Once you get that foundation in place, it will then, as I said, take you somewhere. Wherever you end up, it doesn't really matter. It's like kickstarting a motorbike after, you know, it's not been started for 20 years. It's then making the 2 to 3 miles without it breaking down. This is what we need to do. We need to kind of reset completely, kill expectations, and make sure the lads put a winning run together. Because when you're in that dressing room, that's what you need. You need to be able to look around, everybody who's in there, pull together, and actually get it sorted. But it's a winning run that's going to be the key to taking you where you need to go.
My expectations, as you won't be surprised, pretty much on a par as my friend in the high vis vest. You'll never get run over in that, Stu, will you?
No,
I'll tell you what, if you get run over in that, Stu, that's a drunk driver.
It's road safety.
Yeah, road safety.
We'd definitely get run over, me, wouldn't we?
Yeah. I'd run you over, John, if you were still in your flat. I mean, my expectations for next season are, I'd like to see, I've said it before, I'd like to see some passion brought into the team, because it's been a very no passion at all this last season, as far as I'm concerned. I'd like a few games where they get you out of your seat, where they're sort of, you're exhausted after games rather than you're exhausted because they're so dire. My expectations are, if we got top 6 and we got somewhere closer, you know, how many points would we be behind City? I mean, it was embarrassing how far behind we were.
Well, that's 35, was it?
35, 38. Well, that's ridiculous. People have been relegated with that many points. It's just, I just want a few games where they get you out of your seat and you just it's some proper passionate football. And I'm fed up with the shit that we've been served. And I want some passion. I want them to, you know, I don't like it when they kiss the badge, but I want them to understand what the badge means. And I'd love them to understand all of what the fans need. And I don't think that's got through. And I'm really hoping Ten Hag brings that back. So my expectations are passion, possibly top 6. And if they got a couple of cup runs together, then fine. But I'm not expecting silverware.
I've got this comment on screen, and it leads into John's topic. So I'll just read it out. For me, it's bizarre talking about winning anything at the moment. Ten Hag needs 10 transfers in, 10 out. But at this rate, the way we do transfers, it'll take 5 years. John, you wanted to bring in a bit of a transfer talk about buying in a forward. What's your thought process on this one, mate?
Yeah, I think my theory is obviously Cavani's left now. It's looking like at this present moment that Ronaldo might stay. And my point was more to do with we're likely to get a forward in this summer. But I'd be interested to know, we've been linked with a couple of players like Nunez at Benfica and Kunku. I'm saying not going to say that we'll sign them, but I suppose the question I want to ask is, in terms of a Ten Hag system, what kind of forward player do we look to buy? Is it someone who's a bit of a floater who plays on the right, plays a bit of centre in that, or do you think we might challenge potentially or get someone to maybe challenge Ronaldo if he stays with the number 9, perhaps a backup number 9? I just like to get people's perspectives on what they think we might do there in the transfer window, or what might suit Ten Hag's systems more.
Yeah, just to come in on that, I'd say, because I know you said earlier, John, about big signings. I'm just thinking, do we necessarily need the big signings? We could find like players, and develop them. I'm just thinking the likes of, Liverpool, when they brought in Van Dijk and Alisson, Klopp developed them. So I don't think necessarily we've got to go out and spend like, 80, 100 million. We could find those gems at, 30, 40 million. So I know you said one player, the Benfica player, Darwin Núñez, and I think he could be potentially a good player for United. So I think he's had 34 goals in about 41 games across the season, so which is definitely a good return. And that's one thing United was certainly lacking in that department, because we were just relying on Ronaldo in the end. And obviously there's still that forward line that's there at the moment with Ronaldo, Rashford and Martial, and what becomes of them too. So I think firstly, get them firing on form, but also add to that as well. And I think potentially, from what I'm seeing, Darwin Núñez could be potentially a good player to have. So it's just not sure on who else is out there at the moment. So, and what in terms of what fits with Ten Hag's formation and what he decides, because he can adjust his formation according to like the games from when he's in attack and defense as well. So yeah, I would probably, if I was going for one, it'd be Darwin Núñez, but like I say, I want to see what else is out there first.
Everyone can see Ben's comments on screen, so I'll make sure that you tune in to our YouTube channel tomorrow. We'll keep you on Twitter. We'll advertise it on there the time. I can see Reece grabbing a drink, but I'm still going to ask Reece a question. I mean, is there any strikers out there that takes your eye, or what's your thought process on the amount of change that our strike force has gone through in the last 12 months?
Yeah, the Núñez one is an obvious one, isn't it? His numbers are ridiculous. I can't remember how many goals to games it was, but I think it was a goal every 83 minutes or something daft. But I'm sure the stats will be on, like you say, on our show tomorrow. So I'll let the guys sort of pick up on his numbers tomorrow, I'm sure. But yeah, it seems an absolute obvious one. And if I'm really honest, there's so much floated around about different players I've never even heard of, players that I have heard seen a little bit about, and it's tough. I think this is the kind of thing where you're just gonna let things ride. And obviously, there's going to be a lot of spin on United in terms of transfers this season as well, with how poor our season's been, and obviously a new manager coming in as well. It's kind of a double tandem in terms of the hype that's going to be floating around Man United to get players in. So I'm not sure. I mean, will he give Martial a chance when he comes back? I personally don't think so, after all the flack he's received at Sevilla as well. So obviously he's still got Rashford there, he's surely going to get a tune out of next season. I think we're all hoping that Ronaldo sticks around for another year as well. Sancho, I think, is going to have a really big season next season. I was saying that the other night when we were talking about the player of the season awards, and I think next season might be the one where he goes on and does something really special. I think we're all hoping that. So yeah, a Núñez to a Rashford and a Sancho partnership, as well as Ronaldo floating in and feeding into that, would be pretty special, wouldn't it? So just wait and see. Liverpool are obviously fishing around for a replacement for Mane now as well, so it's going to be pretty difficult, I think, John. So got to take it as it comes, I think.
Yeah, we won't talk too much about that then, obviously, with that show planned in for tomorrow. So make sure that you tune into that show tomorrow for a bit more detail on that. We can't have Stu on the show and not talk about something to end the show. We spoke about his balls, we spoke about his shin pads, we spoke about his socks, we spoke about
Hang on, we spoke about Stuart's balls.
Oh, you missed that one.
Oh, yes.
Oh, thank God I did.
Yes.
You've talked about them before, Neil.
Oh, footballs. There you go. You see.
It's very good for football. Just a quickie before I start. I wouldn't bring Nunes in. His ball control is pretty woeful. He's a bit like Haaland, really. He's not. He doesn't excel outside the penalty area. The only thing he's good at is putting the ball in the back of the net. So depends how Ten Hag wants a striker to play. I'll bring in De Silva from Frankfurt. He'd be a better option for us under Ten Hag. But yes, so topic of the day is, Neil, you will absolutely love this one.
Here we go.
Pick this one up. It's what do you put in your football bag when you go to a game? What do you put in your football bag? So you've got your bag. Mine's before. I used to travel on the Saturday. My bag was already packed on the Friday evening. So I used to have my bag, football bag. I used to have a football boot bag in there, 2 football boot bags, because I had 2 pairs of football boots, Adidas World Cups and Copa Mundials, as Neil would say. 3 pairs of shin pads. Now, the reason I took 3 pairs of shin pads is in my earlier days, I was a central midfield player. I was quite a hard tackler. And I've broken on more than one occasion 2 pairs of shin pads in a game. So I realised right at the very beginning, when I didn't have any spare pads, that I need to. So I have 3 pairs of shin pads and a pair of socks, because sometimes I would pair 2 pairs of socks, sometimes I wouldn't. But pairs of socks. I would have some bandage, some sports tape bandage, if you know what that is. So basically, what you could do, you could wrap that around your wrist, and it's like a self-adhesive bandage. It's pretty good actually. Some sock tape. I didn't always tie my socks up. Sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't. You've probably all been in dressing rooms where people have put copious amounts of tapes around their socks. Quick tip: if you do use tape, don't put too much around, because if you break your leg, it's very, very difficult to get the tape off if you haven't got scissors. Just a small tip there for you. Not that I ever broke my leg. I broke my shin, but not my actual leg. So I managed to hobble off with my shin. I had a pair of Lucky pants years and years and years ago. I think it was Euro 96. Budweiser were giving away free pants, and they got Lucky pants and 96 on the back. And I played a match in them and scored a bit of a worldie of a goal. So they became my Lucky pants, and I wore those for something like 20 years until they kind of, they dishevelled, really, if I'm being honest, kind of like just didn't want to know anymore. So my Lucky pants, Budweiser pants. Boot wipes. I always like to go out with clean boots.
And you've been filling this bag up for 5 minutes. How big is your bag? Take a suitcase with you.
Mary Poppins has got less in her bag than Stu.
Standard football bag. So I used to like to have clean boots before I went out. So I'd always wipe my boots out. But you're gonna have a bit of pride in your footy boots. I'd have a towel.
We used to get fined.
Yeah, well, we did as well. Yeah, if you went with particularly bad boots, we used to get fined. Towel, obviously. Deep heat if it's a cold day, and freeze gel. Free gel if it's a warm day. I have had some kind of ibuprofen in there, some antiseptic wipes just in case you get cuts and bruises. Yeah, it's all right. You get looked after when you're on the pitch, and then obviously when you're going home and that, you might need to put some gauze on your shoulder or your knees, whatever, and a spare top. So that was in my football bag on a regular basis before I used to play. So I was just intrigued to know who else would and what other people had in their football bags. Copa Mundials.
Oh, there you go, Stu.
Grip socks. I speak about grip socks. Yeah, there you go, lads. I told you grip socks. Anyway, Neil, go on then, mate, because I know you'd lap this one up because you like me. You like stuff like this.
I used to take 3 pairs of boots. Copa Mundials, World Cup, and then I had another set of World Cup with smaller studs in. So I'd have soft ground, hard ground, and the one in between. So I was a right dick when it come to stuff like that. But I used to use tubey grip to hold my shin pads up because it was easy to take off. Yeah, I used to use the tubey grip,
So
and then my pads never moved.
So you're innovating,
but everything else the same.
Because you're innovating. Because the latest pads now are very, very similar to that, aren't they? They're very small pads, like me, like you probably will. But then they've got like a sock over them. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Neil Burton.
I've always said I lead, others follow. Come the revolution, climb on board this train, my friends. You're all welcome. There's plenty of room. Always took 2 Lucasades, Ben.
I was a Lucasade person. Lucasade just solved every problem going. You felt like Lucasade.
Yeah, we never had to take drinks because our club always used to provide them. So
yeah, ours were provided. Yeah, there was no water in the tap, which is probably better than Lucasade.
Tell you what, Neil, these Sunday League players, eh?
Yeah, they haven't got a clue.
I'm joking.
Not a clue, have they, Stuart? I agree with you, Stuart.
While you're talking, Neil, Tyrone's asked about any tips for keeping the old Copper Mundials. It was dubbing, wasn't it? Just dubbing.
Yeah, and I always my weird one was I always wore my boots in the shower after the game and washed them while I was having a shower.
Yeah.
Then I used to soak them in polish, let that soak in, and come the next week, ready to go again.
Beautiful.
I had you know those shoe trees you used to get?
Yeah.
I used to have those in all my boots.
Yeah. Well, I used to put newspaper after every game, and I'd put I'd wash them off once I got home, and then I'd dump them overnight, and they were absolutely beautiful the following week. But a bit of newspaper to keep nothing major because you don't want them to stretch. Just a little bit of newspaper just to keep them in. So that would work for you, Tyrone.
I'm not a big Lucasade Sport fan. I can't get if we're gonna have Lucasade, I'd have to have one of the original ones. I can't be having Lucasade Sport. It's just not a big fan of that one, unfortunately. We best call it a night, don't we? 11:05. I think we need to carry this conversation on Twitter. We'll put some Twitter posts.
Yeah. Andrew looks like he wants to tell me what's in his bag.
I know. I think John's back, so I can ask Andrew, but
I was going to say, not as hard as
we'll move on.
I didn't usually have a massive bag of stuff really like that. No, I take probably an extra pair of shin pads, and then tape was always a thing for me. And I always used to wear a pair of socks over my socks because I just liked my boots to be snug. I didn't like them to be sliding around, so I put an extra pair of socks on, and then there's a bit of a knack for taping around the bottom of my shin pad. Just a bit of a I like that, and then but other than that, I'll just tape some socks, maybe another pair of shin pads, but nothing much more than that really. I always had one pair of boots, but my boots were more. I liked tempos really. I like night tempos just because I've got wide feet and they're very comfy.
Equal Scholar though. Equal Scholar, the Tempos back in the day. Equal Scholar.
I still got a pair of Tempos, yeah. So I still,
Equal Scholar, I'll give you that. You've got your Puma Kings, your Tempos, and your Mundials or your World Cups. Those are your 3 scholars.
I was going to say I always used to take goalkeeping gloves because we used to rotate who was in goal, so everybody got a chance to play out. So I always took the goalkeeping gloves.
That was a hell of a level then you played there, Andrew. You were rotating the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
There you go.
Listen, my team would have rather played with 10 players and put me in goal, trust me.
Yeah.
Because it would have been
I'll get myself sent
off.
We'll put a little Twitter poll out, Stu. Send me a message after the show, and then put a Twitter poll out on something, and we'll obviously put a link to this video attached to it as well. So
it should be it's like desert island discs, John. It's like what can Stu be without out of his bag? What can he do without? If you had to get rid of one item.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
If I had to get rid of one item.
Yeah.
If you could only take 3 items out of your bag, you can only take those 3 items. What would it be?
Oh, crikey.
Obviously, the Copper Mundials you'd take.
That's next week.
You can't take off on Monday, how's that? Bloody hell. I'll have to think about that one.
You got a week to think about this, Stu.
I've got a week to think about that one. Good question.
We are going to wrap up, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. It's been a cracking show. Covered a lot of subjects as always, but some real topical stuff. And as always, Stu's bag this week. Brilliant. Look forward to next week. Thank you to everybody in the comments, and we shall see you again soon. Thank you, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.
Well, guys.
Bye.